right. We just returned just this last week, and we had a great time. And speaking of what would Jesus read, one of the places we visited was Jesus' hometown of Nazareth. And we went to a place called Nazareth Village, which has, it really recreates life in the first century as Jesus would have experienced, and Mary and Joseph. And the synagogue, as it would have looked like in Jesus' day, has been recreated. And this is what it looks like. And so I was there and I was reading from the scriptures, and I had someone come up next to me that's one of our tour people named Rob that was with us, and he held the scroll. I don't know if you can see it in his hands, but it's a scroll similar to a scroll that Jesus would have read from as he was reading the regular scriptures. And it was his turn to get up and read. And what did he read? Well, let's just look at it in Luke chapter 4, starting at verse 16. So he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. And as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day, and he stood up to read. And he was handed the book of the prophet Isaiah. And when he had opened the book, he found the place where it was written. And then Jesus read this: "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord." And then he closed the book and he gave it back to the attendant and sat down. And the eyes of all who were in the synagogue were fixed on him. And he began to say to them, "Today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." An amazing thing for him to say.
That was quite a bold statement for Jesus to make, the hometown boy standing up in the synagogue, reading that very familiar passage and then saying, "Today you have seen it fulfilled in me."
In effect saying, I am the Messiah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it stirred up a fair bit of controversy, as you might imagine. As you read the rest of the story, they even wanted to try to kill him right there, but it wasn't Jesus' time yet. But read the rest of the story in Luke chapter 4. But we did have a wonderful opportunity to visit so many places where Jesus was.
Another place we visited was St. Anne's Church. Now, it's the site of where Anne, the mother of Mary, tradition says she was born right there on that site.
And that church was built in 1139 in the Crusader period. And it was built over a church that was built back in the Byzantine period in about the 4th century.
And it is also known for having the most beautiful acoustics. And so when we were there with our 105 friends, your mom had everyone sit down in the sanctuary of this church, and she led us all in a song, and you took out your iPhone. I'm so glad you did.
Yeah, well, it was a beautiful moment with those acoustics in there, and Mom loves to sing in that church. So let's listen in.
Enjoy this.
It was a beautiful moment there in that church. And also, that church is directly beside the ruins of what was the Pool of Bethesda, as the Bible refers to it in John chapter 5. And there you can see some of the ruins.
And a very familiar story took place right there at the Pool of Bethesda, found, like you said, Ron, in John chapter 5. Let's read it together, shall we? It says, afterward, Jesus returned to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish holy days. Inside the city, near the sheep gate, was the Pool of Bethesda. With 5 covered porches, crowds of sick people, blind, lame, or paralyzed, lay on the porches. One of the men lying there had been sick for 38 years. When Jesus saw him and knew he had been ill for a long time, he asked him, "Would you like to get well?" And then it continues, "I can't, sir," the sick man said, "for I have no one to put me into the pool when the water bubbles up. Someone else always gets there ahead of me." Jesus told him, "Stand up, pick up your mat, and walk." Instantly the man was healed. He rolled up his sleeping mat and began walking. Now, there is so much interesting in this passage, and one of the things that I think jumps out at most of us is the very obvious question that Jesus asked of this man: do you want to get well? And it makes me wonder, why would Jesus ask him that? And then I start thinking about me, and maybe about us, and how tempting it is for us when we feel like we're going through such a difficult time for such a long, extended period of time, for us to almost, in a twisted kind of way, get comfortable in our misery, start to accept it as our lot in life, start to build a comfort zone around us. And so when Jesus came to him, he said, you know what, you don't have to go anywhere for your healing. Your healing has come to you in the person of Jesus. Jesus says, I am here to give you healing. All you need to do is receive it. But Jesus didn't only say, receive your healing. He also said, pick up your mat and walk away. And I think in that, Jesus was reminding all of us, you know what? Burn the ships. You know, you're not going back there. You're not going back to your comfort zone. I want you to disassemble where you have been for such a long time, because you're not going back there again. Find your comfort, your healing, your wholeness in your relationship with me. And I think that's a good word for all of us today.
And it is a reminder of what Jesus can do for all of us. And as we close out this hour, let me just read again what Jesus read in that synagogue in Nazareth. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He sent me to heal the brokenhearted. Are you brokenhearted today? To proclaim liberty to the captives. Do you feel like you're in bondage in some way? And recovery of sight to the blind, and set at liberty those who are oppressed. Whatever you're going through today, Jesus is there for you. And I would encourage you to give us a call on our prayer lines. You can say, here's my need. Here's what I'm going through. Would you pray for me? That's our privilege. That's why they're there 24/7. 1-866-273-4444.